Hi, and thank you for visiting my channel. For more information, kindly subscribe and follow now. Let's get started. You may have seen something cringeworthy recently, but an old video of Josiah Duggar has made a comeback on the internet. He went into detail about how he kissed Lauren several times before they were married. Reddit users debated the strange flashback video and made assumptions about Josiah and Lauren's current whereabouts. Josiah Duggar mentioned practicing kissing on his hand before getting married in a flashback, counting on footage that just emerged online. "I wanted to know how it felt, so I practiced on my hand," he said in the video. "I believe she was probably simply trying it out on my hand to get a feel for it." The ability to feel the kiss on his hand, Josiah said, enabled him to make modifications. Perhaps something needs to be changed, like maybe his lips might use some fullerness. "You have to give it some thought," he said. Upon seeing the video, many felt compelled to express their disapproval of his every word choice. Someone went so far as to say, "I just can't bring myself to activate the audio." The captions were scary enough to warrant an emoji. "The second-hand embarrassment is real," another person said plainly. "What Lauren would think if she saw the old footage today is anybody's guess. Practice makes perfect, as the old adage goes." Josiah may have helped the TLC star out with her awkward hand-kissing practice. Bella, the couple's 2-year-old daughter, was born after their 2018 wedding. It is possible that Lauren and Josiah are expecting again soon. The couple Josiah and Lauren are supposedly expecting their second child. Since February 2020, none of them has shared anything on social media. Many think Lauren is trying to cover up the fact that they are expecting again, and that's why. In fact, some of Lauren's more astute admirers have seen what seems like a baby bulge in several of her most recent videos. At the gender reveal celebration for Jed and Katie Duggar, she appeared in a few photographs as a backdrop. "Absolutely looks like a bump," one poster said. "You can see the outline of her belly and she looks pregnant," was another comment that others jumped on to confirm. Nobody can say that the loose-fitting sweater is to blame. Prior to this, a family portrait from September was the last time we saw Josiah and Lauren. Over Labor Day weekend, the Duggar family gathered in large numbers. Since Lauren and Josiah have been somewhat absent from media appearances and photo ops as of late, fans of the family were overjoyed to see them again. We don't yet know whether this is because they're attempting to conceal the news of another pregnancy. In the quiet corners of a modest Arkansas home, Josiah Duggar sat at the kitchen table, fingers tracing the soft grain of the wood. The stillness around him was interrupted only by the faint sound of crickets outside the window and the rhythmic ticking of the clock that hung above the kitchen door. His wife, Lauren, was seated across from him, her hands wrapped around a mug of herbal tea, the steam curling up toward the ceiling in delicate spirals. Marriage had not come easily to Josiah. Raised in the strict, regimented world of the Duggar family, where rules and religion reigned supreme, affection was not something that had been freely given or encouraged. It was an abstract concept, distant and elusive. Growing up, Josiah had learned to follow rules, how to be obedient, respectful, and disciplined, but love, true affection, had always been something spoken about in reverent tones rather than shown in day-to-day life. Lauren, on the other hand, had grown up craving touch. For her, love was not something that could be captured in words alone. It needed to be felt, expressed through actions, gestures, and most importantly, touch. She had always believed in the power of human connection, the magic of holding someone's hand, or simply feeling the warmth of a loved one beside her. But in her early days with Josiah, she had learned that he was not quite as attuned to this kind of affection. It wasn't that Josiah didn't love her. He did deeply. He had fallen for her gentle smile, her thoughtful heart, and her steadfast faith. But there was something in him that seemed to resist the physical expression of that love, as though he had never been taught how to show it. Lauren would reach for his hand, and he would offer it, but there was a hesitancy, a stiffness in the way his fingers closed around hers. It was almost as if he didn't know what to do with them. One evening, Lauren had gently brought it up. "I feel like you're holding back," she said softly, her voice laced with concern. "When you touch me, it feels distant." Josiah had looked at her, confused. "I'm sorry, Lauren," he replied, his brow furrowing. "I'm not sure what you mean. I love you, I really do." I know you do, Lauren said, reaching across the table to take his hand. This time, she didn't let go. But love isn't just something we say. It's something we do. It's how we show up for each other. He had sat in silence for a moment, contemplating her words. The truth was, affection wasn't something that had come naturally to him. Growing up in a house with so many siblings, where personal space was limited and emotional intimacy was often sacrificed in favor of order and routine, Josiah had learned to keep his distance. Hugs were given sparingly, kisses on the forehead were reserved for special moments, and hand-holding was practically unheard of. In his world, love was something you performed through service, not touch. But here, sitting with Lauren, he realized that love needed to be more than that. It needed to be felt, shared, and experienced in ways he had never learned. I want to be better for you, he said, his voice barely a whisper. I just don't know how. Lauren smiled, her eyes softening with understanding. We can learn together. It was a gradual process, like learning to dance for the first time. Josiah began to pay attention to his hands, to the way they moved, and to how they could become instruments of affection. At first, it felt awkward. He wasn't sure how to bridge the gap between his mind and his body, between intention and action. He started small. When they sat together on the couch, he made a conscious effort to reach for her hand. The first few times, his grip was tight, almost too tight, and Lauren would laugh, gently reminding him to relax. But over time, he began to understand the rhythm of it, the give and take of touch. He learned that love wasn't something that could be forced or rehearsed. It had to be spontaneous, an outpouring of emotion that came naturally. Josiah also began to notice how much his hands communicated without words. A light touch on Lauren's arm when she was worried, a gentle squeeze of her hand when they prayed together, the way his fingers brushed her cheek when he kissed her goodnight, it all began to feel like second nature. He realized that these small gestures spoke volumes. They were quiet expressions of love that told Lauren, I see you, I'm here for you, and I care. With time, Josiah came to appreciate the power of touch in his relationship with Lauren. He started to enjoy the way her hand fit into his, the warmth of her skin against his own. It was as though his hands had become an extension of his heart, able to express emotions that words often fail to capture. The more Josiah practiced, the more he realized how much he had missed out on by not embracing affection earlier in his life. Touch wasn't just about physical connection, it was about emotional vulnerability. It was about being fully present with the person you loved, letting them into your world in a way that was both intimate and comforting. For Lauren, it was as if a door had opened. She had always known that Josiah loved her, but now she could feel it. His hands, once tentative and unsure, now held hers with a kind of confidence and care that made her heart swell. They spoke a language of their own, one that needed no words. In the mornings, when they would sit together at the kitchen table, sipping their coffee and talking about the day ahead, Josiah's hand would often find its way to hers. It was a small gesture, but it meant everything. In those moments, Lauren felt closer to him than ever before. She knew that this journey, this learning to be affectionate, wasn't just about touch. It was about trust, about letting go of old habits and fears, and about growing together as a couple. Josiah had learned that love, real love, couldn't be confined to words or acts of service alone. It needed to be felt, shared, and experienced through every part of the body, through the heart, the mind, and yes, the hands. As they walked through life hand in hand, Josiah realized that he was not only becoming a better husband, but also a better version of himself. And in the quiet moments, when they were alone together, he would often find himself reaching for Lauren's hand, not out of obligation, but out of love. A love that he had learned to show, one touch at a time. This fictional narrative explores themes of emotional vulnerability, learning affection, and the power of touch in relationships, giving us insight into how love can be communicated through actions and small gestures.